I'm Eric Chemi, and this is Politely Pushy. Welcome back to Politely Pushy. Today, my guest is Dwight Harris, or should I say Dwight Harris Jr.? You decide if that Jr. is important. You're the
It's
founder of
important to my dad.
DataScalp.
It's
What'd you say,
important.
Dwight?
It's important to my dad.
Okay. Yeah, we don't want to upset Dwight Harris Sr. So
Right.
our guest is Dwight Harris Jr. You're the founder of DataScalp, and it's an intriguing, I'd say, product. Maybe it's a platform. We'll get into that in a second. It's almost like a Yelp, but for airlines, right? It's like data-driven analysis of what real users are experiencing, real travelers are experiencing, and how we can rank airlines based on true customer data. So Dwight, thanks for joining me on the show. And so just explain, because obviously that's just a very basic summary of it. How do you explain DataScalp when you're talking to investors and customers and partners?
Sure. DataScalp is, as you said, it's a platform really, and it does two things. It allows consumers to number one, input poor airline experiences, and number two, it ranks, unlike Yelp or other places, it actually ranks commercial airlines according to baggage accuracy, on-time performance, number of cancellations, and time to refund. And what it's really doing, unlike anyone else, is it's actually giving consumers a voice to some of these industries where they didn't previously have a voice before.
Yeah, I would say airlines definitely, there's not a lot of voice. There's not a lot of choice. It's like, well, if you want to fly from X to Y, there's 3 flights that go there and that's pretty much it. Or you can walk, right? You can deal with it yourself.
Right.
The mission here, who are you trying to help? Is this just you saw an opportunity to make some money? Is this I'm trying to help travelers? What's the mission here?
The mission really is to get into industries that are really almost like commodity like industries and to do a couple of things. Number one, you want to give consumers information. So we're starting with the airlines because there's a clear issue with the performance for airlines. And there is a lack of transparency in terms of which airline is the most likely to get me to where I need to go, which airline is the most likely to get my bags there, which airline is going to be the best at having to give me a refund. So that's an issue. But there are also other industries, right? There's like, for example, if I choose a law firm, I don't know what law firm wins versus another. If I choose an insurance company, which insurance company will deny my claim the most? Which insurance company is going to process my claim the fastest? We're living in a digital age, but unfortunately, there's still information that consumers need to have to become impactful.
But didn't this already exist, right? Like, wasn't this already out there? Like, there's so many reviews online. There's so many databases. There's so much social media analysis and sentiment and commentary. This has to have already existed, right?
You would think that it does, right? Like, as clumsy as I am on the internet, I can find information about my local dry cleaners. We live in an information age. But when it comes to getting information about what airline in the last few weeks has had the most cancellations, or what airline is most likely to lose my baggage, or what airline gives me the quickest refund, that information just didn't exist. So if you were going to complain, okay, well, you could write, I guess, the Department of Transportation or the airlines, or you could call them, but who are you going to call? And don't say Ghostbusters. The reality is that the DataScalp is providing an important voice for consumers where they didn't have one previously.
So what's your background? Who is Dwight Harris Jr.? Who's senior and who's junior? And I mean, did you work in the airlines? Like, how did you get to this point?
Sure. Well, I'm a former Wall Street vice president for Barclays Investment Bank. After a number of years, I left and started my own consulting firm. And, we had clients such as Dun & Bradstreet, Citigroup, and Bank of America. I partnered with an offshore concern in Europe to expand the offering. And we began to sign on clients a couple of years later, right after the worst of the pandemic. And basically what we have done is we solve corporate performance issues. We know how to change behavior. DataScalp as a platform is designed to not only give consumers the power that they need, but ultimately that's going to show up and who consumers choose for these various services, and that's going to change behavior because it's going to necessarily impact uh, the airlines in particular, starting with them. It's going to impact them, and it is impacting them actually in terms of like revenues and who are booking flights with who.
So how do you get people to, give the data, right? This is a classic thing where the product is the data, right? Like
Yeah,
you're hoping people are going to submit for free. So how do
correct.
you get them to, what's in it for them, right? Are you
Sure.
paying them? How does this work?
Yeah, it was a great question because consumers historically actually want to report, and they will report bad behavior. We have seen this with Waze, we've seen this with Gas Buddy. So we've relied upon consumers to just do what they normally do. The problem with the airline industry, as you are aware, is that consumers haven't had a voice. So we know that we're tapping into really a long-awaited desire to have an impactful voice. The way we're utilizing, and you make a really good point, we're utilizing inferential statistics. If you have folks that report the data, which they're doing, then ultimately we're going to be able to approximate the information that the airlines are refusing by their lack of transparency.
We get into, just say that again. Say that one more time. You said something about something inferential and they're refusing to use it. All of a sudden we're getting some heavy words here. So let's just break that down, go a little slower here. Walk me through
Sure.
that.
Sure. Well, look, we didn't want to have to do this, right? Like the airlines have data and they could have self-reported this and the government could have taken this on as a project. They didn't. And so it's really the lack of transparency with the airlines that and the government's view of a dashboard that really forced our hand. What we're doing is because the airlines won't provide their performance data across the board, we're using basically samples. That's what each consumer is doing. They're providing samples, free data, complaint data, and we're going to take those samples. We'll have averages of those samples and basically a super average, and that's so closely going to approximate the information that the airlines aren't sharing with us that our information will be very valuable to consumers, and then they can book their air travel based upon that. So right now we when we began DataScalp, we started with some historical data, but now every day, 3 times a day, we're actually updating based upon consumer input.
How far can you take this? You mentioned other industries. So is
Yeah,
airlines the ones, like all these commodity ones where they all seem the same from the outside. You don't really know what's going on the inside.
that's right. Like this literally is there's no limit to this. When I tell investors that this is $1 billion opportunity, I'm not even kidding. I mean, literally, if we just focused on the airline industry, this could be a 400 or $500 million situation because we're of course the ultimate place is when we're the objective here is actually you're able to book flights, but you can do the same thing in insurance. You can provide that, and you can also book insurance based on performance. You can book law firms based on that. You can do the same thing in the medical industry. So there's depth to what we're doing, and we're seeing some great traction with DataScalp currently as it relates to the airlines. There's depth within the airline industry, but there's also breadth across other industries, and these issues are global issues. So we are in the process of looking at and rolling out for India and Australia, and then we have Europe and Canada on tap as well. So this is really a tremendous opportunity, and this platform and what DataScout brings, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
So who's paying, right? You said this airlines could be 400 to 500 million, a billion if you hit all these other ones. Who's giving you the money? How do you actually sell?
Sure. DataScout makes money 4 ways. Number one, we sell online ads. Number two, we sell information and consulting services. Three, coupon codes and pay-per-clicks. And four, it's the airfare bookings that people make online as well.
And do you have a sense for which one of those will be the biggest? Like how would you rank? Okay, this
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
the most profitable center of profits for us.
Yeah. Look, online travel is by far the largest. You're talking about a $1 trillion industry, right? So you get 1.5% of that market. That's about $400 million. That's the big thing. And you can understand that if consumers are repeatedly looking at DataScalp, which they're doing, and if they're looking at DataScalp prior to booking, well, then it just makes sense that we just are the ones to fulfill that that need, right? To meet that need. So that is huge. And like I said, that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the airline industry. The same can be true for insurance. We have already submitted the patents for the insurance, and same thing is true for law as well. You can do the same for medicine. So the opportunity is huge. We're connecting a lot of important dots that not everybody's been able to connect.
What's the investor turnaround on this? Is this okay? You make your money back in 3 years, 5, 7, maybe 20? Is it, next month? How do you give investors a sense for that ROI and when it's coming back?
Yeah, I believe very strongly that within 3 years, we will have return investors investment probably at least 5 times, because it doesn't take a lot to take the site and make the alterations and put it into different markets. That's not a big expense. The biggest and the most difficult challenge has been the brain power to bring all of these kind of like different disciplines together. Inferential statistics and relying upon the central limit theorem, like what is that? Like, no.
Why do you need that though? Why do you need central limit theorem and inferential statistics if it's just, hey, I'm submitting my experience and you're taking an average? Like, why do you need all this extra heavy duty analysis? When I look at Amazon reviews, right, or Google reviews, just like, all right, they got 100 5 stars, 23 stars, and 10 1 stars. Like there's no special sauce there.
Well, that's a really great question, because DataScalp is so different in the sense that it's quantitative, right? Like, we're not talking about thumbs up or 4 stars versus 5 stars. We're talking about what is the average delay for this airline? What are the average?
But isn't average just like a basic median, like the median or mean? Why do you need like hardcore stats for that?
Because what you're doing is you're approximating very closely the information that the airlines have. And the way that you're doing that is you're taking free data, free quantitative data, and you're actually running a super average on those averages. And we're doing this over an 8-week period of time. So it's the quantitative nature of this that is very specific, and it will allow consumers for the first time to understand and have the depth and the ability to understand what is one airline, how badly or how much better are they than another. That degree of distinction, that's powerful. And you do that by relying upon inferential statistics as the kind of like the philosophical way of manipulating and understanding what the data represents.
Will there be decisions that can be given to people, like specific pieces of advice? Because let's say I look at, okay, airline A's average is 30 minutes. This one's average 35, but maybe I don't care about their West Coast routes. Maybe I only care about the route leaving Newark because that's the airport I use, right? So maybe the average doesn't apply to me. Or what about in snow versus in the summer? Like there's a lot of factors that could change. So are you going to give a decision of, if you're flying out of this city on this day, this is the airline to pick? Because the national averages may not apply, but like in this season and on this city, this is what matters.
Yeah, you're talking as if for like someone who really appreciates the nuances of data. And I can appreciate that. This is designed, look, 45,000 people travel a day. This is designed for everybody, regardless of what their math background is, to just basically understand, look, who's most likely to cancel my flight?
Yeah.
Who's most likely to lose my bags? Who's most likely, or who's going to give me my refund the quickest if indeed I need to get a refund? Those questions are just basic answers. We certainly have the capacity to go deeper, but I don't really think, and if the consumers tell us that that's what they want, then we'll deliver that. But right now, we're just focused on making sure that the basic needs are being met, because those needs have been ignored for decades.
You're going to piss off a lot of airlines with this, aren't you?
I really appreciate that question, because I'm going to tell you what. Initially,
and that's in a good way, right? Like you're going to be publicizing data that they're trying to keep secret. right? And
That's
like the
right.
ones that are doing badly are like, well, we don't want people to know.
You said it. You hit the nail on the head right there. The ones that are doing badly will say that. The ones that are actually doing well are going to appreciate it. And ultimately, investors and employees, they want to know what they're doing. They want to know how they measure up. Nobody wants to be in the bottom. Everybody wants to vie for the top. And so, yes, there is always that 7 degrees of change that happens, or 7 degrees of resistance that happens. But I bet you what's going to end up happening here is the airlines are going to appreciate this ultimately, because it's going to help them to be better. It's going to help them to be more competitive. And that's what we all want. We all want them to just be better.
What's been the feedback when you talk to the airlines? What are they telling you behind closed doors?
We've
money to
received
go away. How much money do you want to go away?
Yeah. Look, we are. That's another thing about the question that you asked about the exit strategy and the payoff. Right. We fully anticipate that airlines may approach us and they will want to make us go away. That's not what we're here for. We're here for the people. We're designed by the people. This is for the people. And so, yes, we fully recognize that there will be some people who are unhappy with what we're doing, but ultimately, like I said, this is really benefiting everyone. And ultimately, even the airlines will come to realize that this is going to ultimately benefit them. This is a service that's going to help them to be better. It will help them to make more revenues, believe it or not.
What's been your biggest challenge so far? Has it been on the development side? Is it, getting more investors? Is it getting more users to submit data? How do you, what is the one most important thing keeping you up at night?
Oh, well, the one most important thing keeping me up at night is I just want to make sure. I know we're approaching. We've been having conversations around financing, and so I think as a leader of an organization, your biggest challenge is you want to grow. You want to make sure you have the right capital to grow in a capacity that is responsible and it's going to get the job done. I'm I've been I've been a leader now, and I've worked on Wall Street now for enough years to know that execution is everything, especially when you have investors behind you. So making sure that we have the right uh, mix of people, making sure that we have the right plan for, let's say, 6 months and then 12 months, and making sure that we meet those deliverables to execute. I'm all about execution. Those are the things that keep me up at night.
When will we start to see these other industries roll out? You mentioned insurance, for example,
Yep.
some of the other ones. When is that coming? Is that next year?
Yeah, I believe that the plan is for around this time for 2023, as we are in the third generation for DataScalp. Then that's when we make the adjustments. But the prototypes have already been established. The patent work has already been underway. That's patent pending. So yeah, your timing is about right.
And then lastly, where do people go to submit their data and see the results? I assume it's all public. That's the whole idea of this. Is it just datascalp.com?
That's it. That's it. Look, the site has been optimized. It's designed for simplicity. You go to datascalp.com, and right there you're presented with a dashboard. Dashboards change behavior because it gives accountability. And then there's a big blue button. If you want to report an incident, you just hit that button. The interface, the pages load super quick. You report your incident, and that information is captured, and we have intelligent AI behind the scenes manipulating that data and ranking the airlines. It happens 3 times a day, so the site is actually quite dynamic. That's how it works.
What if people sabotage other airlines? Let's say I'm an employee of United and I just keep saying, let's all just go and say American was terrible. Like, how do you stop that? How do you verify?
Yeah, that it's a fantastic question. We're not worried about that at this moment, but we are in second generation, which is what we're working on right now today. We are working on fail safes to make sure that is minimized. You're never going to be able to fully eliminate that. But as you know, with sample data, you're going to have some pockets of bad information. It's really the sample size and making sure that you have a large enough sample that's both representative and random. Those are the two key elements for making sure that your sample data is good. So we are taking the fail safes. We are also going to start working with the airlines. Once they come around, and that's one of the reasons why we have it where we're updating the information 3 times a day so that we can give them enough time to validate this, because that's where we're going ultimately.
Dwight Harris, thank you so much for coming on the podcast talking about DataScalp today. Thank you to my guest, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to get the latest episodes each week, and we'll see you next time.